Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon to whoever is marking this resource. My name's Callum Devine, and this is part of the 3300 EDN Inclusive Education assignment, and I'm from the tutorial on Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. My student number is S5167239, and this is part A of the resource. And so as you can see here in this image here, this is an example of a yarning circle. Obviously the students are sitting around in a circle and, they've obviously got the carpet of the traditional Indigenous painting or mural there. But essentially how I would implement the yarning circle into my classroom is I'd get all the participants to sit in a circle and encourage to actively listen to others' views, and the participants should understand that there is no hierarchy in this circle or anything like that. And so I'd obviously introduce all the students into the group, I'd introduce myself, and then I'd introduce whatever the focus question is. So you'll see in my next video, it'll explain and give a bit of a demonstration on that. And then we discuss our thoughts, ideas, opinions. And so the host, which could be anyone, it could not just be the teacher, it might be a student, is going to encourage participants to take turns, put their hand up, promote sharing and learning, and deliberate on whatever the topic it is at hand. Okay, and then after that, we're going to then reflect on what we have written and spoken about in the mind map, which will come up next and speak about. As we can see in this image, we've got our mind map, and in the next video, as I said in the previous, you're going to see a bit of a sort of visual demonstration on how it would look in my classroom context. But essentially, there's going to be a theme in the middle, and then there's going to be our branching out and our different you could call them neurons, or neurons and synapses from the brain or from whatever the focus question is. And from that, we're going to write down our thoughts, feelings, emotions, expressions, whatever it is concerning the topic. And so that is just, obviously this is a stock image of it, but you'll see in the next video, it'll show you what ours would sort of look like in a classroom context. Hey, g'day guys. My name's Callum. I'm one of the students in the inclusive education class. And I'm just here to sort of do a bit of a video and talk about sort of my resource and my sort of resource/activity that I sort of didn't invent, but sort of linked together that could be useful in a classroom setting. And so what I mean by that is I think this is applicable for sort of upper primary, which is, what I think the activity and resource will be better tailored towards, but you could obviously do this in a secondary context. But due to my studying of primary education, I thought I'd tailor this towards the upper primary years. And so I'll get straight into it. So this is the mind map, but that's the activity, but it's encompassed by the yarning circle. And so what the yarning circle will essentially look like, and what I sort of explained on the previous slides, is students will sit around in a circle in a classroom setting. And it doesn't have to be in a classroom, it can be outside, it can be wherever, but essentially you're in a big circle, and then we'd have the mind map in the middle here. And so, for example, I personally have chosen the topic of family history. But the topic itself can be whatever you want. It could be an issue that's out in the public currently that needs discussing. It could be anything to do with anything really. Sorry, I've just had a bit of a mind blank. But I've chosen family history, and this is a good way to get to know your students. So what I've done initially is I've put down the initial theme in the middle, so family history, and then I've discussed what my family history is. So I've done a little link. And so where my family culture comes from, so I've got heritage in Latvia and England, so, Eastern Europe and, not continental Europe, but the British Isles. And then if I then sort of wanted to dive further, I could talk about, I've also got Estonian origins, and so that, essentially around that Baltic region of Eastern Europe, and then Anglo-Saxon as well. And so with that, I could then write that down, and then another student would maybe put their hand up, wanting to speak about their family history. And so if I then go over to the side here, we can see that this student has said that they're from New Zealand and England, and so that we've got some similarities. We've got English heritage, and we've also got the Anglo-Saxon heritage, but we've also got a little bit of difference here. So we obviously know that this student is a Māori student, and so that way we could discuss, this student and myself, the connections that we have with each other through our family history. And so then we go up here and we can see this student has got Chinese and Australian heritage, and then this student up here has got Greek, Italian, Australian. But then they've gone a bit further and talked about they initially had Persian origins, so modern day Iran. So that way you could then start seeing all the variety and diversity in your classroom. And people, when they're in the yarning circle, could speak about their culture and family history. So it's not just subject to saying exactly where your family history is from. You might like to do little dot points or other little words around your mind or your little bubble on the mind map. And obviously with a full classroom, this would be very full. And so the activity should take about 15 to 20 minutes for most children to discuss and elaborate upon. And then with this mind map, we then hang this around the room. And so that way people can come in and look and go, oh, this is where this person's from, or this person has these sort of roots, I have these sort of roots. And then they can make a discussion about it. And so essentially that's how the mind map with the yarning circle will work in my inclusive education activity /resource. Thanks very much, guys.